we started. صلى على محمد وآل محمد. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم، والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب قلوبنا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الحمد لله الذي جعلنا من المتمسكين بولاية سيدي ومولاي علي بن أبي طالب، والحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ربي اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. In the name of God, the most beneficent, the most merciful, we ask Allah to send His greatest peace and blessings upon Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. We praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for all the blessings He has given us, and the greatest blessing being that He allowed us to be of the ones who remain steadfast, dedicated, and loyal on the path of our master after the Prophet, the commander of the faithful, the prince of the believers, the protector of the Prophet and his message, Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. We praise Allah for this blessing and every blessing, for without Allah we would have nothing. Assalamu alaikum, my dear respected brothers and sisters, wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. On this night, we come forward thinking of the very principles that Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad have left us with. The ones that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sent the mercy to mankind, along with His holy progeny, that would be vested their lives and their death in protecting this religion of Islam and protecting the believers who have dedicated themselves, committed themselves for this religion to be successful in this life and the next. We've spoken about identity and how important it is for us to be able to engage in our society and be those who are truly on the path of Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad, wherever we may be in the world, whether it be in Pakistan and India, or it be in the United States and Canada, or any other corner of the world. And we see as a blessing for all of us as followers of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, the praises of Ahlul Bayt, from the Holy Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, to the awaited Imam al-Mahdi al-Muntadhar, Ajjalallahu ta'ala farajahu sharif, may Allah hasten his reappearance. Their praises are sung in every corner of the world, in so many different languages. It's a blessing that we live in. We need to cherish and take advantage of it, and not take it for granted. When we look at our relationship with Ahlul Bayt, they are that connection for us to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They are Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's prescription for us. If you want to get closer to me, you need to know them. If you want to become one with me and bring yourself to your purpose, the purpose that I created you with and the purpose that I created you for, then you need to know these immaculate examples who will show you that path, show you the way. As our Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, would say in his farewell pilgrimage, he would tell the thousands of the believers that stood beneath him as they would listen to the words of their Prophet. He would say, "O my believers, O my followers, I am leaving with you two weighty things." And he would gesture with two index fingers and say, "I am leaving with you two weighty things, the Book of God and my family. If you hold on to these two, you will never stray after me." So brothers and sisters, that is our mission. That is our vision. That is our strategy, to hold on to these two weighty things. Now in our busy lives as professionals, entrepreneurs, students, family members, mothers, fathers, sons, daughters, brothers, sisters, when we look at our lives, we get very busy. And practically we ask ourselves, how am I supposed to fulfill this purpose that I have? Being the best version of myself I can possibly be on every level. Intellectually, physically, spiritually, professionally, socially, academically. How do I make this happen? How do I gain spirituality and bring myself closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when I'm trying to raise 3 children under 7? How am I supposed to gain spirituality when I work 2 full-time jobs? How am I supposed to gain spirituality when I am working day and night to make ends meet? When I'm taking on new projects to expand and make sure that the wealth for not just my family but my community continues to grow? How am I supposed to gain this spirituality? Now, this discussion on spirituality ties directly into our identity and our role in our community and our society. We've spoken about engagement. We've spoken about how we see ourselves and others. But now let's take it to the next step forward. How does the Imam instruct us to engage in our society and benefit from our relationships with others and understand how that ties into our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? So essentially, when we're looking at ourselves, and I want to become more spiritual. And essentially the question of becoming more spiritual is becoming a better version of myself on this dimension. How do I do that? How am I supposed to go forward? Because at the end of the day, people are an important part of my life. And I cannot neglect people. And that's going to be a question that we're actually going to answer. When I'm looking at myself and seeking my salvation, is this a mission that I can accomplish simply on my own? Am I alone? Many of us may feel lonely. Many of us may experience a state of being lonesome. But am I really? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us through the Holy Prophet, narrated from Imam Ali alayhi salam, he says, the Prophet says, "Man arafa nafsa, arafa rabba." Whoever knows himself knows his Lord. So the journey of me becoming closer to my Lord, essentially, of course, needs to come through knowledge. That knowledge of my Lord comes through that knowledge of oneself. Now, in order for me to know myself, I need to know how I'm going to be acting, especially when I'm with other people, especially when I'm observing the rights and obligations of other people and my obligations towards them. You see, I may be a certain way by myself, and I may be able to do a lot of good by myself. I may be also be able to do a lot of bad by myself. But how am I with others? When they have conflicting interests, ambitions, aspirations, perspectives, experiences, and backgrounds that differ with mine, conflict with mine, how do I deal with all of that? Do I isolate myself in order to seek my salvation, seek my spirituality, my spiritual development? Do I assimilate with the excuse that in order for me to advance myself in all aspects of my life, I need to be one with those that are around me because I can't do without people and the connections that I have with people? Networking, 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 something that I heard throughout law school. And something that we continue to hear in our professional careers, that in order for you to get what you want, you need to network and you need to connect with people. True, but to what extent? What has Ahlul Bayt alayhum salam prescribed for us in order for us to practically reach this spirituality that we're all trying to attain? This excellence that we aspire for, the way Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam lived their lives. Essentially, we're looking for that balance. When we speak of work-life balance, what is that exactly? How does it look like? Is it a certain number of hours in the day? Or is it a perspective, an attitude? That even if I just had a few moments in my day to myself, what do I make of those moments? Even for the wife that's waiting for her husband to come home, does she take advantage of those moments that she has with him? They may be just a few. It just may be 15, 20, 30 minutes. Or does she, or even he, look at it that, man, that's all I have? Is the cup half full or half empty? Now, some of these may be simple suggestions and simple, phrases that we use, but they hold a lot of meaning. Now, when we come to our spirituality and we look at this mission, this journey for ourselves, we need to understand that in order for me to have this relationship with my Lord, I need to make sure that I'm looking at myself and I'm being honest with myself and who I am. I can't have a facade of a relationship with God because He knows what's going on in my heart. He knows what's in my soul. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us that He is closer to us than our jugular vein. Even some things that I'm not aware of about myself, He definitely knows. So when I'm speaking to God and I'm trying to become closer to Him, take this as a practical step. In my prayer, treat the prayer, and this is of course, my dear brothers and sisters, something that I need to remind myself with before I remind any of you. With each and every prayer that we have, take that as a meeting with God. And even though we look at throughout the day, it is a struggle. I barely have enough time to keep up with everything. When it comes to our prayers, those are the most important meetings of the day. And I'll tell you, at the law firm, when we have clients coming in, it's something that when a client comes in fact, sometimes we cut short our own partner meetings and our meetings with our staff because a client came in. The client is our top priority. We want to make sure that the client is serviced to the best of our ability, the best of our resources all the time. So our own kind of personal agendas or our own personal goals that we're trying to meet, let's say within our staff, within our team, will be cut short at the expense of this higher priority. Now, when it comes to our meetings with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, our prayers, let's make sure that we treat those at the highest priority because it's only a couple minutes. A meeting with a client will be 15, 20, 30, an hour. But a meeting with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we have in our prayers is just a handful of minutes. In those handful of minutes, how attentive are we? When we sit down with our clients, when we sit down with our colleagues, when we sit down with people that we're trying to retain business from, that we're trying to close, how much attention do we give them? We have full attention, verbal and non-verbal. My posture, the way I position myself. That is why our Imams, in fact, instruct us in our prayer. There's a certain etiquette. The way we stand, the way our hands are by our sides, the way we look at the ground, the way we kneel, the way we prostrate. It's also important because you're giving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala the attention that He deserves. Now, this is just a practical implementation, a practical step when we're looking at our meetings with God. Now, what about our moments of pause? The Holy Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, says that an hour of contemplation is worth 70 years of worship. Now, you may say, I don't even have an hour in my day. If we have 5 minutes, do the math. Do the math. 5 minutes in that hour to 70 years of worship. What does that equate? That's our homework for tonight. And I don't mean to make this like school and take us back a few grades, but if we just take a moment of pause and think about that. Think about how much a moment of pause will be beneficial to us. In fact, it allows us to revisit what worship means. The Holy Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, would teach us this through the example that he set with a man that he found praying at the mosque. During the Prophet's lifetime, he engaged with his people one-on-one. He talked to them, man to man. So he would see this gentleman praying at the mosque. Whenever the Prophet would leave, he would see him. Whenever he would come back, he would see him. In one moment, at this time, the Prophet comes up to him and he waits for him to finish from one of his prayers. He catches him in the middle and he comes up to the man and he exchanges salams. Assalamu alaikum, wa alaikum assalam. This man is honored that the Prophet is coming up to him. The Prophet asked him, I see you here all the time. And I'm paraphrasing here. I see you here all the time. Do you have a family? He said, yes, I do. It's like, okay, do you work? Do you have a job? How do you provide for your family? He said, no, O Rasulullah, I have dedicated myself to a life of worship. So the Prophet, puzzled, looks at him and says, well, who takes care of your family while you're here worshiping all day? He said, I've instructed my brother, I've gave him a wikala to make sure that he takes care of my family. The Prophet instructed him and said, leave the mosque and go take care of your family and take care of that worship. The man followed suit because this was Rasulullah instructing him. Now, if we take that and we think about it, it may be very simple, and some of us, it may be something that's considered to be badihi, obvious. But for many of us to take a moment and think, when we're working, when we're providing for our families, when we're struggling out there in the workforce, in our business, or the student trying to excel in their academics, you are struggling in God's way, and you are fulfilling duties that you have for your family and before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's so important. In fact, in those moments, that is something important for us to realize, that we are worshiping in those moments. How do we gain spirituality? By taking these moments of pause and realizing with the right intention and the right purpose, what is it really all about? When I'm at work and I'm at my desk and I'm frustrated with all the paperwork that I have, or I'm out there trying to make sales, or I'm setting up these meetings with potential clients, or I'm at home cooking for my family, man or woman. Whatever it may be, whatever situation we may find ourselves in, the act at hand, being conscious, being conscientious, having an aware state of mind, being mindful essentially. With our mindfulness, we can see our spirituality before us. Because when we're in a state of mind that we are thinking of God, we are thinking of, look at the blessings God has bestowed upon me, that I am with my hands able to make a meal for my family, I am with these hands able to provide for my family, make sure that my children have a life that is better than the one I had, better than the ones my parents had, that my parents that came from different backgrounds, different countries, escaping persecution, war, or just simply trying to achieve a better life with economic opportunity that we found here in this nation. And we've made this nation our home. Taking that and another step back with that moment of pause, we see with ourselves, the more mindful we are, the more conscientious we are, the more spiritual we will become. And this is a guarantee, not from me, but from our Holy Prophet. Because those moments of contemplation, that hour of contemplation, our contemplation, my dear brothers and sisters, is not sitting down on a prayer mat or at the top of a mountain and absorbing a beautiful scene of nature. Yes, there's definitely great benefit to that. And we are encouraged to make sure that we take that time where we can benefit from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's bounties in nature. But we can also benefit from all of the moments of contemplation that we can have in being mindful in any situation that we're in. Even in that meeting, even when we're trying to make that sale, even when we're trying to close on that client. I'm thinking, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is helping me here. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is my resource. He is my source. And any rizq, any sustenance I have, no matter how good I am at my job, at the end of the day, it's from Him. That moment, you have gained in spirituality. That moment, you've become closer to Him. Why? Because you've acknowledged who you are. And who you are, who I am, who we are His servants, His creation. And we were created to worship Him. And now, as we've seen, our worship of Him comes in all of these aspects, all of these facets, in that state of mind, in that conscientiousness, that mindfulness. Now, when I engage with the rest of the people around me, and I'm in that state of mind, how do I act with people? Do I assimilate in the society around me? Do I isolate myself, trying to protect my faith and my spirituality? Or do I take a middle path of integration? Something that actually many communities from before us, and when I say before us, I speak of us as Muslims here in the United States, as a challenge, as a minority integrating in our society. Something that many minority communities have experienced before us, like the African American community. W.E.B. Du Bois and Frederick Douglass spoke of a program called Assimilation through Self Assertion. And that essentially was a program and a mindset, an attitude that as a minority community, in order for us to protect our identity, our faith, our background, and our heritage, who we are, we need to assimilate into society. But through self-assertion, making sure that when we're engaging in society, we are fully engaged, we're in the system. However, we don't lose our identity in who we are. From our perspective and what we've understood from our scholars, essentially that's integration. Because assimilation, the word itself, carries some negative connotations, which essentially means to lose one's identity in the process in order to gain certain benefits from being one with your society and the people that you're around. Now, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala instructs us through the examples of Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad that when it comes to assimilation and it comes to losing one's identity, if we're looking at that connotative meaning of one's losing identity in order to gain in the society that they're in, we have this principle called لا تعرب بعد الهجرة. There is no going back to being uncivilized after the migration. And the migration essentially is a reference to coming to Islam. So no matter where we live in the world, if we are going to find ourselves in a way where we're going to lose our faith, lose our principles because of where we live, that is unacceptable. And at the same time, we don't isolate ourselves. And Imam As-Sadiq alayhi salam would instruct us, and this is found in Al-Kafi by Al-Kulayni, where he would say, in volume 2, saying 635, he would say that people cannot do without one another. People need each other. And some ahadith later on in the same volume, the Imam would also instruct us and say, if you were to remove your hand from the people, as in essentially in a society, when you remove your hand from the people, you don't want to cooperate with people. You want to isolate yourself. You don't want to be one with your community. You don't want to attend the mosque. You don't want to be one who is engaged in society. You don't want to meet with people. You don't want to talk with people. You just want to be all alone, all by yourself. The Imam gives us the reality of the situation. He says, if you remove your hand from the people, they lose one hand. But you lose many hands. People need each other. The Imam instructs us in another narration, in Imam As-Sadiq, he instructs us and he says, go to their mosques, go to their funerals, visit their ill ones. He's referring to, at this time, talking to his companions who are minorities in their own community, as followers of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, instructing them to go and visit and engage and be one with those that were outside of the followers of Ahlul Bayt, the general masses of Muslims in their community. In the same light, when we look at what our scholars instruct us, is for us to integrate in our societies and be one with those that are around us, but making sure that our identity is never compromised and our principles are never compromised. We as followers of Ahlul Bayt, when we realize this, our spirituality will be there. Why? We don't run away from our challenges. We don't run away from our problems. Our spirituality doesn't come from staying away from people. It's being able to face the challenges that we have as a community, within each other, with each other, and make the right choice. Imam Ali alayhi salam was that great example for us in saying that when he was during that 25-year period, as we mentioned yesterday, that 25-year period where he was outside of the caliphate, he didn't isolate himself. He didn't go to the southernmost part of Arabia, going down to Yemen. He didn't make himself outside of the system, outside of the community. He made sure that he was there. Why? He was setting the example, the standard of just governance and what it meant to be a Muslim that is a follower of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in times of strife, in times of fitna, of instigation, of sedition, in the worst possible times. What does it mean to carry on your faith? The challenges that we face can be immense, but we have their example to make sure that we can continue seeking our spirituality and making ourselves closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by focusing on ourselves. And when I say ourselves, it's not necessarily a selfish pursuit. And actually, it's a selfless pursuit. Because when you focus on yourself, you make sure that you are a better person for your wife, for your spouse, for your sons, for your daughters, for your colleagues, for your family, for your community, for your society. And we're mindful of that. We make sure that we never take the rights of other people. Whether it be in charging someone extra for a certain product or a service, or even make sure that you're spending the right time with the right people. We're never taking people's rights or transgressing against them. Because when we're mindful of these rights and these obligations that we have, we are truly seeking that spirituality. And just ending with this note, my dear brothers and sisters, spirituality is not a feeling. And this is not something that I say, but something that our scholars tell us. Spirituality is not a feeling. Spirituality is a lifestyle. Spirituality is conduct, is behavior, is observing our obligations before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's not a certain feeling that we have when we see something. Spirituality is making sure that we're making the right choices. We are choosing virtue over vice over and over and over and over again. As Imam Ali alayhi salam would tell us that he would see beyond the veil and he would see how ugly vice was and how beautiful virtue was. Imam Ali alayhi salam would tell us that one of the things that he would miss from this world before departing is sitting down in the mosque and praying to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, having his moments of pause, his moments of reflection, and making sure that he worshipped Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not just in the mosque, but in every aspect of his life. We look back to our Imams, we look back to their examples, and we see how we can become closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through them. Now, tonight, we bring forth the memory of Imam al-Rida alayhi salam. Imam al-Rida faced immense challenges. Our 8th Imam, during the Abbasid dynasty, with al-Ma'mun al-Abbasi, the time that he faced was unique in that al-Ma'mun wanted to reinforce his position in his community by making the Imam his right hand. Now the Imam would navigate all of that so beautifully, in such a way that his plan, al-Ma'mun's plan, would backfire. And the Imam would continue, unfortunately, to be seen by the Abbasids as a threat. Now, let's take a few moments to reflect, mourn, shed our tears, and remembering the Imam's martyrdom and how he was killed. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. If I tell you this tale of sorrow, will you lend me your hearts to borrow? Will you shed a tear for Hussein? Will you remember Zainab's pain? And if we stay here tonight until tomorrow, will you remember this tale of sorrow? Listen here to Hussein's story, a story of heartache and glory. When Imam al-Rida alayhi salam was in his final days, he was aware that al-Ma'mun was fed up with the presence of the Imam. Al-Ma'mun had a plan. He wanted to end the Imam's life, but he wanted to make sure that the people would not know what happened. Al-Ma'mun would invite the Imam, bring him into his home, and sit down with the Imam. The Imam would come forward, and he would see Al-Ma'mun sitting there with a tray of fruits. Al-Ma'mun would invite the Imam and tell him, "Oh Imam, oh Ali, look at these fruits here and join me. I'm sure you've never seen fruits like this before." Al-Imam, knowing what he was devising, knowing what he had in mind, he would tell him, "Thank you, but I wish not to eat from this fruit." Al-Ma'mun would press with the Imam, telling him, "Are you to reject an invitation, O son of Rasulullah? Please do not reject me." The Imam, knowing what was within this fruit, knowing what was going on, he would extend his hand. As some narrations would say, he would take 3 grapes and he would eat them. Al-Ma'mun, delighted by the scene, knowing that the Imam had just eaten the poison grapes that he had given him. The Imam would get up and make his way to the door. Al-Ma'mun would tell him, "Oh Ali, where are you going? Oh, suddenly, where are you going?" The Imam would turn to him and he would say, "I am going where you have sent me, O Ma'mun." They say that the Imam would go home, he would have the doors shut to his home, and he would become ill. The body of the Imam was breaking down. The body of the Imam was deteriorating hour before hour. Brothers and sisters, but I beg of you, remember Imam al-Rida in his weakness, in his illness, after being poisoned. People were coming, surrounding him, visiting him from his companions and his followers and his family. They were saddened by his state. The Imam would look to them and he would tell them, "Oh my beloved ones, have you eaten? Have you had a meal today?" One of them would respond, "Oh Imam, Mawlai, how can we eat when we see you in such a state? How can we think of anything but you when we see you in such weakness?" The Imam would rise up and he would go and fetch some food, and he would get some water and fruits, and he would bring them to everyone sitting there, and he would make sure that everyone had eaten. He would say to all the men and all the women, "O men and O women, you must eat, you must be fed." This was the generosity of the Imam, that he couldn't rest in these moments until his followers, his family was taken care of. Brothers and sisters, after a few moments with his family around him, the soul of Imam al-Rida would depart, and all of them around him would call out, "Wa Imama, Wa Sayyida, Wa Aliya." Call out with your Imam. In your soft voices, call out, "Wa Aliya, Wa Aliya, Wa Aliya." Brothers and sisters, as Imam al-Rida, his soul departed, and his followers were crying around him, I beg of you, do you remember Imam al-Hussein on the day of Ashura, when his chest was trampled by the horses, when his neck was slaughtered, and he was beheaded by the hand of Shimr? Who was around the Imam? Who surrounded the Imam but the swords of Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad, but the swords of Umar ibn Sa'd, but the swords of Yazid, la'natullahi alayhim? Who surrounded our Imam when he was slaughtered, thirsty, lonely? No one to support him, no one to aid him, no one to cry over him, until the ladies, until Sayyida Zainab would come running from the hilltop, coming to see her beloved Hussein, a body without a head, his chest trampled by the hooves of the horses, and the echoes across the century calling out, "Wa Husayna, Wa Husayna, Wa Husayna." As Imam al-Hassan would tell Imam al-Hussein on his own deathbed, "La yawmaka yawmaka ya Aba Abdullah." There is no day like your day, O Hussein. Inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un. وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون والعاقبة للمتقين. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept our tears. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive all our sins, all that we have done, and to accept the small good deeds that we put forward in the name of Ahlul Bayt. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to keep us on the path of Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. We ask Him to allow us to be an extension of their mercy, to be a mercy to all of those around us. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to heal all of our ill ones. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to have mercy and forgiveness for all of our deceased. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give success to our community, to our families, to everyone that is present in this program, in this majlis. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give them success in this life and the hereafter. بِحَقِّ Muhammadin wa Ali Muhammad. We send the blessings of Surah Al-Mubarakat Al-Fatiha in the name of Imam Ali Al-Rida, in the name of his grandfathers, in the name of Rasulullah Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alih. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by the blessed Surah Al-Mubarakat Al-Fatiha. But before it allowed, salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Bismillah.